Meeting of Armada Village Council come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michelle, could you read the roll call?
Shaw?
Here.
Clark?
Here.
Conan?
Here.
Belkey?
Here.
Sleds?
Here.
Ballard?
Yeah.
Wallach is absent.
Approval of the agenda. What's your pleasure?
Mr. President, I'll move the agenda be accepted as presented.
Nope, you gotta add,
We gotta
you're gonna add this on, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
have change orders 2 and 3 from Sorensen Gross down at the sewer plant.
New business B.
That's under new business?
Yep,
That is. That is the.
Yeah.
and we'll put it under D for now.
Yep, 2D.
Change order 2 and 3.
Yep.
Okay. Mr.
Support.
President,
So you'll do it as amended,
As amended.
Ballard?
Yep.
and you supported, Belkey?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved.
What the heck was that?
I don't know, but he buzzes.
Oh,
No, are there any citizens back there?
He's out of order.
no,
Yeah, he is.
No.
no.
Okay, no citizens comment, no presentations, administrative reports. Any liaisons?
Yes, I've got a couple. I did sign off on the F&D proposal to do a capital improvement plan study and funding options. Just talking to Jeff, he advised, he looked at the contract, he advised that we take out the indemnity clauses that were in there, which we did. We struck them out, countersigned, so that is signed, ready to go. It's, that proposal was in the packet at the last meeting. Next one is the easement language still remains with the county executive's office. I did talk to Patty Dibb late on Friday, and she's watching for it. Once the exec signs off, assuming he signs off, it goes then to the board for their approval. This very easy, simple process has only taken about 9 months now. So, I did request an update to the trail signage. You might recall Amanda, can't think of her last name, from the county came down and talked to us back in February or March, and haven't seen any signage yet. It was supposed to be up in the spring. So
They did put up stop signs.
these are supposed to be waypoint
Oh,
signs of the
other
village.
signs,
Yes,
yeah,
and
but they
village
did get the stop
businesses
signs
and-
up.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll bring an answer back at the next meeting, and probably the nicest, the best thing is, it appears that we've got 5 residences in the village that qualify for SB 690. That's the state's water assistance program. You have to meet certain economic conditions, but if you do, the state will then defer some of the water bill. And I've got to talk with Becky. This is just kind of a late note, but it appears we've got 5 households that do fit into that bucket, so that's good. Okay. Mr. President Pro Tem, back to you.
Are there any other administrative reports? None, then we'll move on.
Mike, can you pass the sign-in sheet to Doug and to this?
Okay, what's your pleasure with the consent agenda?
Mr. President, I'll move the consent agenda be accepted as presented.
Support.
Belkey?
Motion by Ballard, supported
Seconded by
by Belkey to
Yeah.
approve the consent agenda. All ayes, ayes,
Aye.
nays. Motion's approved. New business. Village office cleaning.
That's me. As you guys know, back when we approved the budget, we approved for a very small cleaning position. We've had one interested party. His resume was in the packet. Becky and I both met with him. Super nice guy, you know, so we'd like to try him out. And as you know, like we did last time, we're gonna make this a employee position. That way they're covered under our stuff, so.
Now, Jeff, I believe is what, the minister for the church over
Yes,
here?
yeah,
Church of the Nazarene, yeah,
Yeah.
the Paul's Barber Shop.
yep.
So, could I get a motion on this, please?
Mr. President, I'll move that we hire, wait, there's a motion.
Read the motion.
Jeff.
Approve the hiring of Jeff Rolfe for a part-time cleaning position at a rate of $12 an hour with no benefits. This job can be performed weekly during regular business hours under the supervision of the village office.
Support.
Wow,
You guys saying that the office needs to be cleaned?
I'm giving that to Clark. Were you one of them?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Okay, motion by Ballard, supported by Clark.
Do a roll call.
Yeah. Roll call, please.
Belkey?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna scratch that. Ballard.
Yeah, Ballard. Yep.
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Belkey?
Yes.
Sleds?
Yes.
Conan?
Yes.
Shaw?
Yes.
I'll have to say absent.
Okay, sidewalk replacement, Mr. Ballard.
Yes, sir. Well, I've identified some of the sidewalks in town, and I've got Ed to go out and get some measurements on them. He got some linear feet, and he's transposing that right now into the square foot of sidewalk, and I'd like to put that out for bids yet this year. And because we've got to spend it by April, I believe, is that correct?
Before April.
Before April. So we'll see if we can get some sidewalks replaced in this town. Okay?
Okay, you need a motion to put out them bids?
No.
No,
I don't think so.
no.
So you're good to go, Lyle?
Thank you.
Okay. Now, Lions Club special event permit applications. We have a couple of them.
We do.
I think it's 4 and against.
One for the Four Corner fundraiser
Split it into, yep,
and one for holidays.
holidays. So in everyone's packet, you got the correspondence from Chief Patrick on his comments and recommendations for both events. And I'll before I get into what he's exactly doing, plus the supporting, he's attached the applications for both events, and then he has attached the COVID plan from the Lions Club. Then he's got a Miller Canfield, the Chiefs Association opinions, plus the Health Department orders or rules, and then the governor's orders were all attached, along with some other correspondence of how things are going are being presented. We see that the governor's state of emergency powers, and that has been taken as far as the Supreme Court ruled against her. However, they're just within a day or two after that, the Board of Health came out with their rules, which basically were copycat of her original orders. The mask, the social distancing, the number of people together. There is one additional piece of information, that's why I was really glad Jeff's here for this one, because I was very interested in the Miller Canfield response of liability.
Yeah.
Going against the order,
Yeah.
and they made the comment right up in the front part of that passage of that that we could be held liable in the event that something happening, yeah, because of the, I'm trying to think of the right word, the immunity clause doesn't exist here today, that it would have, you know, that have afforded a municipality or an entity who would host such a thing would be immune to prosecute, or whatever it is, a lawsuit in regarding this. And to me, between, as the chief put it, the fact is that we still have, in both cases, have a very, very difficult, not impossible time to enforce the regulations. You know, and I think what he said with the holidays, for example, and that's an interesting point, but I didn't think of when we first were talking about it. If we have an event that everyone else around is canceling events, you're now bringing in even more people from other, possibly, which then moves us, and that's one of the comments in that worksheet that it was out there about, hey, it puts us it puts us in the highest risk category for that. The Four Corners, we talk again too, it's, you know, I saw the COVID response plan, but ultimately the number of interactions, you know, you're not changing glove every time you touch a car, you're not doing the same, you know, it's again, the contact plus the fact in order to get the distance in the street puts you on in the other side of the center line, is going to be as awful difficult to manage. And so Chief is saying between, you know, following the health department rules and the existing guidelines that are still effective. Jeff, I don't know where the 21 days came from, because that's actually before the order was going to expire on the 27th of October. This puts it just before it, but I don't know why the two aren't the same.
You mean the effective date of the?
Yeah,
I don't think she's right on that.
Okay.
I know there's been some debate.
Yeah.
She took the position that the Supreme Court order would take 21 days, which is a typical appeal period. So I think that's where they were coming from. But as you stated, they obviously moved very quickly to enact the regulations.
Yep.
Those took immediate effect. So even if the 21 days, even if her orders were still in effect for 21 days,
Yep.
the regulation, they took action on the regulations, so.
Now, I haven't heard about Macomb County, and Jeff, maybe you both with Sterling, and what you've heard from there. Initially, Hackle said he wasn't going to push it at the county level, whereas Oakland and others have already followed along with the state health department. They've got their own county orders, which again are very similar.
Yeah, I know.
Now, other communities are doing the Four Corners type thing, aren't they?
I don't know.
Armada Township stopping it.
Armada Township, they don't own any roads, so they wouldn't have
Yeah,
to go to the
wouldn't,
township, that
it's
those are
not-
county roads.
Yeah. So,
being in the private or in the county, and then versus the city, yes, the far corner here, this is it's in the public domain versus the private side of it too, which then that's where Chief from the last time when it was just the Four Corners was, hey, it is different. Versus some of the things we were talking about is that now you are in a public right of way, not a private. So that does make it more challenging. And then
I did talk to the city manager in Richmond. That's the only place I can think of that also does lighted up parade or an event downtown for Christmas. And I asked him what they were doing, and he says, well, you can tell your board we don't know.
yeah.
So that's the answer I got. They I think, but that's an event that they do. So they haven't
what
decided
about
yet.
Sandusky?
I did not call, I only called Richmond. I didn't know anybody else. So
I was thinking Romeo, but I think that's just when you go down Tilson and all that where they do the lights. But I think you drive by it anyways versus walking.
yeah.
But
Well, I don't think that's a hosted event by
No, I
the
agree.
municipality.
Yeah,
That's
they're not.
so I can't think of anyone
They're
else.
not
besides
doing
them.
anything with that.
Yeah.
right.
Okay, well, we got,
So you have two orders in front of us. You want to take care of Dave? You want to go over the?
well,
Which
there's
is what we
one
got
about the Four Corners,
Yep, that's
and
the
the other
first one.
one's basically about holidays, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let's, right now, first of all, zero in on the Four Corner fundraiser, the Four Corner fundraiser for the Armada Lions Club. With this special permit application, do I have any motions?
Mr. President Pro Tem, I'm going to make a motion to deny the special event permit applications from the Armada Lions Club for a Four Corners fundraiser due to the restrictions from Governor Whitmer under the Executive Orders 153 and 183 and the Michigan Department of
Health and Human
Health and Human
Services.
Health and Human Services. Thank you. Emergency order issued October 2020.
Support.
With my regrets. Lions, and I'll make another contribution to the Lions, but.
You want to say with regret at the end?
No,
No?
even as
Okay.
it is.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, motion by, Melky, do we have a support?
I support it,
Chris?
yes.
Supported by Sledge, can we have a roll call on that?
No.
Well, do you got
I
any
know,
other
but let's,
discussion?
let's
Do you
have a
want
roll-
one?
Yes,
Okay. You asked if we need one.
yeah,
Need
I'm right, I'm
Maybe
sorry.
we should discussion.
I thought I
Need a
said let's
discussion?
have one.
All right.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave, do we want any discussion here?
Oh, I'm so sorry, yes, is there any discussion?
Jeff, can you go over what's that Miller Canfield statement about liability?
Well,
What are they saying there?
so basically what they're saying, you know, I'm gonna be very candid, I mean, with the chief's recommendation, you know, that's gonna carry some weight, so if you were to overrule, you probably need a pretty valid basis to overrule the chief, because that's how the process works, we go to him for a recommendation, so I think you have to weigh that into that whole discussion of whether this would be an event that, despite obviously a recommendation not to do it, that you grant the special events permit. That would show, and you know, I'm sure somebody would argue that that shows an intent to violate the orders, because the chief says, I can't see a way that this doesn't violate these executive orders and directives through the Health and Human Services. So I think, you know, again, with the Four Corners one, again, we've already said, if I remember the last motion when I was here last, we said, let's not shut it down completely and see what happens. Well, two things happened. The Supreme Court made their decision and ruled that the executive orders were unconstitutional, but then the regulations were immediately enacted, which basically reinstated very similar, you know, restrictions. So I hope that answers it. I mean, I think that's the thing when talking to Michelle that troubles me is just, you know, the fact that, you know, the chief has run an opinion, which we're required to do under the special event process, is ask the chief his opinion, and he's, you know, basically saying, based on my professional judgment, you know, he shouldn't do this. So,
Right, because they could potentially violate and make the enforcement basically impossible.
Is there any other discussion, any other members? Then, Michelle, you wanna call or?
Belkey?
I'm saying yes to deny if that's the way you
Yeah, well,
want.
that's your
Yes.
motion that's on the table.
Yes.
Sleds,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Now moving on to holidays. Do we have a motion concerning holidays? To approve or deny?
President Pro Tem, I make a motion to deny the special event permit applications from the Armada Lions Club for holidays and the lighted parade due to the restrictions from Governor Whitmer under Executive Orders 153 and 183 and MDHHS emergency order issued October 5th, 2020.
Support.
Is there any discussion on holidays?
I guess the only thing I would say is that there is a little bit of time, but I know there's a lot of organizations that put effort into it, and it would be great if something magically happens in the next 30 days and COVID goes away, although I don't expect it. So maybe an opportunity down the road to still do something over the next couple months, but again,
Are
it
you
doesn't
still
give the
keeping your
organization-
motion? Or
No, I'm not
withdrawing your
rescinding the
motion?
motion. I'm
Okay.
just,
No, but I do have a, so Jeff, on that one, versus the governor, when she does it, and she needs that state of emergency, which is once a month, or every 28 days, or whatever they do, how long does a health department rule apply for? Does it have an expiration,
No,
like,
I'm not
or does it
aware.
go on until they
Yeah.
cancel?
Right, until conditions would change.
Okay.
It's a good, I apologize, I don't know exactly, but as long as they were enacted according to their administrative rules. I'm not aware of a deadline that was placed on it, but I could look at it.
So I'd say like to Ross's point, if it did, it'd be about 30 days, and then just like we did the last time, hey, come back and see what happens if they're gonna issue it again or not. In this case, I didn't think so, and by the way, I still think that it's gonna keep going down further into down the food chain until you're gonna get into the local levels, which are gonna start enacting the same one, so.
So we're not gonna have an individual vote on this one. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion's approved.
We're doing this
Not-
kitten day parade. What if we just modified it so there wasn't enough people allowed in town?
What things should we do?
In Detroit. There's just no bleachers. I mean, like people say at the
I think-
houses.
I think you're asking the wrong people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we can't.
Could they reapply
Yes.
with a modified plan?
If there's a way
That's all I need to
for
know.
people to sit in their cars and the parade to go by, that may be.
Yeah.
I would say, I've heard they said the light dance, I've heard others are you're just driving instead, and you don't
Or
have
they
to
could
walk
go
around.
through the
Ma'am,
town?
why don't you
Yeah.
identify yourself and ask your question, and we'll get you as part of the record here.
Thank you. My name is Maureen Finn, and I'm asking if the Lioness could reapply for an alternative plan for holidays due to the COVID restrictions.
Yeah.
Maybe
The
an
Lioness
alternative.
are no longer, so it's the Lions.
The Lions,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Like a
So
magic
maybe an
mask.
alternative parade route.
The Lioness are done.
Without the mask, I didn't know who you were.
There's no organization? Oh, no.
Yeah.
There's different
Yes, so
chapters.
anything can be done.
Yes, you may, yes, you may.
Yeah, I would encourage.
Ours are gone.
Okay, so I've talked to the Lions, thank you.
Just, yeah, be creative, something that keeps everybody in their cars.
At least we have some Christmas spirit.
Yep, I'm with you.
Well, no, this was not, I mean,
It's the-
this is not made with an easy heart. Nobody,
Oh, yeah.
nobody
No.
loves that event.
No,
We can modify it
Oh,
though. Maybe we need to
you
modify it. You guys
you can't just say at last minute, we're gonna do this, because putting that parade together is part of what I do.
Right.
And that is not an overnight venture.
No, it's, I'm sure. So,
Somebody's gotta make up their mind real soon, because you just won't have time to put it
I
together.
can talk to you too. Who else should I contact then, Joe?
Sarah, at the post office,
Sarah? Okay, thank you.
she and I do the parade.
Okay,
And as long as there's going to be people anywhere, you're not gonna be able to social distance. Everybody crowds to the front. I mean, we've made
what if they
announcements
all sit
on,
at their houses?
that would be fine.
Yeah, that's the same, if you
And
had
then
a
we went down the
spectator
residential
list,
streets.
and
Instead of the
just did a
main-
drive-by,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, just like the drive-by birthdays.
Yeah.
Who would like?
Because we also
could
had to
be.
be
I would
very
entertain that.
mindful that the police department are our employees. We cannot put them at any risk.
No, but and then like that too, we would need, so that's police and a DPW.
Yeah, that's, I mean, and that would be up to the Lions
Barricades
Club. The
and
Lions
stuff,
Club
too,
has
so.
to, I mean,
It's an
they
interesting
come up with
proposal.
something like that,
Mhm.
you know,
We could think outside the box
Yep,
that you, well,
Yep.
yes.
and reapply.
and reapply, correct.
Is
Okay.
there anything else, Ms. Finn?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will contact the Lions, thank you.
Okay,
Sorry for
thank you.
interrupting.
No, it's not, it's perfect.
You're good.
Exactly.
You're good.
Wild public tonight.
Yeah.
So, now it's Steve's.
Okay,
Change
now,
orders.
we'll go to, the added, under new business, number D, sewer change order 2 and 3.
Yep, we've received a couple of change orders here, and Doug Scottis from Row is here, and he will enlighten us on those. If you would, Doug, thank you.
Does council have copies of change order 2 and 3?
Yes.
We do.
Okay. So change order 2, I thought was gonna be discussed at your previous meeting, but I think you only talked about the foundation drains.
Yes.
So you have change order 2 in front of you, and that covers, a few different things. So in the narrative, we tried to just summarize and highlight it for you. There was some additional stone for under the floor slab of the newer building. And then the foundation drains that you guys already talked about. We did get a credit for some work that wasn't needed. There's a series of pipes that come out of the SBR structures that would be under this building. And the pipes are a little deeper than we thought, so we didn't need to encase them in concrete. They protected them with some additional stone. And then a difference in the floor elevations, which resulted in a bigger stoop and some handrail that's needed. And so those things, along with the credit, come to an increase of $17,650. And then we're also proposing to change the substantial completion date. So it's a catch-up from when the contract was initiated, issuing that bulletin and the first change order, and Sorensen and Gross being able to get all their subcontracts in line. Took them a while to do that after the bulletin was issued. And so that's a change in the substantial completion date. So that's a summary of change order 2.
What did the date change to, sir?
Michelle, would it make sense for us to move on this one right now?
To July
and-
30th.
And then
Thank you.
let it move on to number 3?
I think you should take them
We
individually.
should probably take them separate,
Right.
yeah.
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 I'll make a motion to approve change order 2 dated September 17th of 2020 at a cost of $17,650.
Support.
Now this we have to have.
Yes.
Roll
Yeah.
call, yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Ballard,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Cronin,
Yes.
Belkey,
Yes.
Sledge.
Yes.
Change order 3 that you have before you, again, I did a narrative to try to summarize it. So some of these things were brought up and then discussed in detail at the progress meeting from last week. So in order to install the backup generator, they have to tie into the existing duct bank electrically, which is encased in concrete. And so there were some extensive discussions with the electrical subcontractor, and he thinks he's going to need to decommission that power for about 3 weeks in order to have enough time to get into the duct bank. So they threw out some different options. Of course, one option was using your existing generator, and Matthew from F&B was quite concerned about that, because the existing generator
It's not reliable.
is not reliable. So that was one that was discussed. The second option would be to run new conduit from, I want to make sure I get this right, from the building out to the new generator, and then from the transformer switch into the building, and then use the new conduit instead of the existing conduit. So the advantage of that is now the downtime for power is 2 to 3 days. So you run a generator by the week. So the numbers are figured in for a week of generator rental, so that we don't have to use your existing generator on its last leg.
Right, and then the other thing that would happen then too, our guys would have to babysit that thing for the 3 weeks. And
Right.
it would just eat us up on the other side.
We did run a cost comparison, roughly the two options. It's, well, I didn't do the math. It's 14 versus 17.
Right,
So it's about $3,000 more, but for that, you have less downtime, less generator, and new conduits.
Yeah.
Cost
So,
of 18 days basically worth of our services. I had to, you put that on there for your opportunity cost, so.
some of
And
that,
in fact, is what happens when it does go down.
right.
So,
yes.
So we are recommending option B for that particular item. The second second item was, there's an existing valve that's on your sludge line and it's a deeper valve. And so Telto was trying to operate that valve because they needed to close it in order to do some work on that line. They did manage to get the valve working, which was surprising, but the valve box that goes down over it apparently fell apart when they were digging down next to work on the valve. So there was a cost for a new valve box. Gravel for the driveway, if you remember, as part of the structure to reduce this price from the original bid, we took out all the asphalt paving that was in the project, but we need to put some gravel back in so you have a surface over there. And then some control joints in the concrete wall. And then there's an existing steel tower and a catwalk that apparently used to be used for loading trucks, I'm assuming with sludge.
Right.
That's not used anymore, and it's in the way of some work that Telto has to do. Is that,
Right.
did I get that right, Steve?
Yes, and I have not seen that tower used in at least 20 years.
So it's one, it's an opportunity to get rid of something that's out there, and two, it's in the way.
Mhm.
So the summary of those things is a net increase of 24,626 to the current contract amount.
If nobody has any questions of Doug, I will make a motion to approve change order number 3, dated October 9th, 2020, for a cost of $24,626.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Clark,
Yes.
Ballard,
Yep.
Sweds,
Yes.
Belkey,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Koenig.
Yes.
And Steve, you have copies of these that you can sign?
Yes.
Okay. So when he signs them, you gotta send them out to us and we can get them to Karen and Dennis.
Why don't you just sign them tonight, Steve?
Yeah, I'll sign them
Send
tonight.
to him. Yeah.
Take care of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Doug.
Sure.
Now, you're keeping the book on these, right?
I have them filed, yeah.
But I mean, it's a sewer book.
There's a sewer file, yeah.
Is there anything else on that, Steve?
Nope.
Well, then
That's
we're-
enough for right now. I'm sure there'll be others to
Yeah.
follow.
Thanks, Doug.
Sure.
Moving on to old business. Sewer plant update.
Yes, I've got just a couple of things to add. Thank you, Doug.
Doug, you leaving?
Yep.
Yes,
Pleasure to see you, thank you.
I attended a meeting last week. Dennis Ryan from Eagle was doing an inspection of the plant. I sat in on the meeting with Matt, our guy who runs the plant down there. And then I also attended a construction meeting down at the plant. And Dennis Ryan and Karen Nichols were attending by phone. They were aware of everything going on. And that's about it. I pop in down there and put an eye on what's going on. I've always done that down there, but it's interesting seeing the work being done, and that's all I've got.
We're lucky to have you, Steve.
Thank you.
For anything else, any questions for the sewer update? Okay, moving on. Ross, water department update?
I think everything was covered above, so nothing other than the next item.
Okay. Moving on to the DPW Supervisor Transition Committee update. As we know, Ed's going to be retiring in April. This committee's been working on a transition.
Right. Back in March, President Wolak formed a committee to study the issue of the DPW supervisor's retirement. As Davis said, 31 March of 2021. The committee consisted of Lyle Ballard, street commissioner, Steve Clark, sewer commissioner, and myself, the water commissioner. And the intent of the discussion tonight is not to get into the weeds here, but to kind of set the stage and give you some things to look at over the next couple of weeks regarding the supervisor's retirement. And what we intend to do is at the next meeting recommend a path forward. We do have options. You may decide that there's a different option than what we've looked at. So we very much want your inputs, and if not this meeting, the next meeting before we make a final decision. So I encourage questions and discussion tonight. We'll try to keep it brief, but if you got anything, please get it out. Next chart is really the purpose of the discussion, and the information on the charts really focuses on this top level view to you guys about what the options that we see are. They're in the packet. Some pros and cons of the various options, and there's a bunch of backup information that you really do need to take a look at the backup information, and then again, if you have questions as a result of it, let us know. Next chart is, well, what's really the principal issue? Well, the principal issue is the Ed, the supervisor, DPW supervisor, is going to leave. And so some things that we've already, I think, gotten out of past council discussions is we're looking for a work on DPW supervisor. We want somebody who's got some longevity. We want to get somebody on, and then whoever he or she is, leaves in another year or two. We would certainly like to replace the current supervisor at a wage and benefit cost that's maybe a little bit less than the current. There's a bunch of other factors that start to come into play. You need somebody that's qualified to run the water treatment plant and the village waterworks. You need to take a look at staffing of the DPW. Are we doing all the things that we could or can? Or maybe is there too much on the plate? And then a plus, a consideration is that it would be good if you had somebody with some instantaneous knowledge of the village operation, how we function. You may not necessarily get that if you compete it, but we can certainly do that. Next chart. I think the big takeaway here is this is a much more complex issue than you might think on its face. It's not just about replacing Ed. There's other things that do come into play, and we talk about some of these here. Again, you can put an advertisement on the various trade sites to find an appropriate supervisor that's got the qualifications. Again, one of those qualifications absolutely should be the ability to run a Type 1, Class 1 waterworks in the village. And then he's got various other licenses that Ed has currently. You want somebody with some management experience and talent. You want somebody that understands everything from the streets to the water distribution systems to some knowledge of how the wastewater treatment facility operates and so on. You've got to take a look at the time it's going to take to find somebody, depending upon who you talk to and what municipality. There's extended wait times to find qualified people. It's easier to find somebody who's qualified if you've got a lot of money. It's not so easy if you're not willing to pay a whole bunch. Something that Eagle cited back late last year or the first part of this year in their water system sanitary survey that they conducted is the village is really not putting the time and attention it needs into its waterworks. Ed's doing a great job of keeping his finger in the dike and holding everything together. And I don't want to give anybody the impression that we're in imminent risk of having problems. But a lot of the little things that have to be done don't necessarily get done. And if you haven't seen that sanitary survey, and I'm pretty sure we put it in the packet 8-9 months ago, there are a lot of detailed items that we just haven't had the time to get to. We've taken care of all of the deficiencies. We reported on that a little while ago. There are 4 primary deficiencies. We've taken care of those. However, there's a lot of other stuff that we are having trouble getting to, given all the other work that's out there. So we may have, we don't have enough people on staff to do everything. That may or may not be an issue based upon what you think about the DPW staff's management of their tasks right now. We've already said yes to hiring an additional full-time person. We've got a job announcement out there. And we also are looking for a part-timer. Depending upon what happens with the DPW supervisor and who we go with, there may be another burden that gets put on it again. Having somebody else besides whoever takes over the facility to act as an alternate to the water treatment plant, the licensing requirements. Currently, we've got 2 people that have licenses and appropriate licenses. This thing is not going to stay up. Ed's got a D2 and an S3 license, and Dave Wagner has a D3 and an S3. The minimum requirement is a D3, S3. So currently we're covered. But one of our employees, Ed's gonna retire. So we have to backfill that position. It's not that we can't go for a period of time with only one person qualified, but you've got on-call issues, and depending upon where people live. And it's really best in Eagle's mind to have 2 people that are qualified to work the plant. One is an alternate. We've been talking for a couple months now about the DPW tasks that we have and trying to really nail down what are the jobs the DPW does. Ed's got 40 years of it in his head. He's leaving, right? We don't have a good document that lays out all of those tasks. I spent 3 hours on Friday, this last Friday, sitting down with Ed and F&V, pulling out what are the specific waterworks functions, what does Ed have to do, and the conduct of those tasks, and where we might split them if we decide that we are going to split waterworks off from other DPW tasks. I would encourage all of you guys to sit down with Ed and get that out of his head before he leaves, and that we have a good roadmap for whoever the next DPW supervisor is, whether we hire outside or whether we have somebody that we pull up from the current staff. Next chart. Question.
Do you happen to have any discussion of, say, communities similar to us, like a K-Pac or Memphis or some of those communities, how they're handling their water situation?
Yeah, actually, Lyle, this is a good opportunity for you to.
I did contact Memphis. I figured they're about the same size we were. And they do have a one man who has the proper licenses for their water. And they have a sewer system that is lagoons. And so he does have a
F1 license, F2 or something like that.
something like that. I believe it's an F1 lagoon license, whatever it is. Anyway, and what they do is if they have big problems, like with their snow, or if they have problems with their in their water or sewer department, they just call it a contractor. If it's more than what the 2 guys can handle, and there's only 2 guys on it. And then they do have a part-time, like a seasonal guy that comes in. But other than that, they run their whole town with just 2 guys.
Yeah, I think we might be looking at something like that.
Yeah, it's just, my thought is that is understaffed for what they have to do. And, we can certainly take a look at that, and we can minimize who we have and try to maximize what they do, and there's ways to prioritize. So I'm not suggesting that that's not an option. I don't think we took a hard look at reducing staff. So our options are either maintaining status quo or going up in staff.
I don't think you can reduce.
Yeah, I think
that's
we'll
an option.
I think we'll be in trouble. So anyway, you start looking at some of these other issues, and then you get to the point of if the DPW has got too much work and not enough people to do the work, and you may not have the qualified people to do the things that we really got to watch out for, which is a type 1 water system in the village and maintaining the safety of that, then we look at, okay, is it plausible to get an outside management company in to manage the waterworks? And what does that entail? There's not that many companies out there. There's American Waterworks, there's Suez, F&B does it. And so we've taken a look at F&B because they're already established in the village. They've got a rapport. They kind of know the operation of the DPW. So we've taken a particularly focused look at them. We can go out and look to have other companies come in, but the thought of going to an F&B is that it will be cheaper, right? So we've taken a look at that. In talking to Eagle, what they would say is whoever you get, and their preference would be it's somebody on DPW staff. But again, we gotta advertise, it's high cost to advertise, the likelihood of getting somebody here may not quite be there, given we're a smaller municipality that don't have a whole bunch of money to throw at somebody. So we've taken a specific look at F&B, and we've part of the previous discussion about sitting down with them on Friday was to get an idea of, given that we split it out, and here's the waterworks activities, and now it doesn't mean that we pass all the current water tasks off to F&B. It means that we come up with a logical breakpoint, and F&B, for the most part, or any company that comes in would do the white collar stuff. They're managing the water sampling, the reports, the data management, that type of stuff, running the facility. The blue collar waterworks type of stuff where somebody's got to dig a trench and repair a break in the line that goes back to the DPW. So you want a DPW that's, again, staffed with a DPW supervisor that'll get down into the trench. Anyway, lots of questions there, but what seems to be obvious to us is that you need a comprehensive solution. This can't be just looked at as let's come up with a replacement for Ed and all of our other problems go away. They don't go away, and we'll be dealing with those down the road if we don't solve our current situation with Ed with a comprehensive solution. Just a final note that, one of the reasons to have F&B take a look at what we would split out and understanding the hours Ed puts into it is to try to develop a cost on it. We don't quite know what this is going to be. It would be great if we could do whatever we're going to do within the current footprint of our current supervisor. It's likely we will go outside of that and above a little bit. And I know there's no desire for a tax increase, nor are we asking for one, right? It's just that the understanding that there may be decrements to some of the departments that pay for this, whatever the cost is. So again, we're trying to find the most efficient, most cost-effective way to move forward. Next page has got most likely options, and I won't get into them very much, but other than to say, number one is maintain status quo, right? So we're not really going to change roles and responsibilities. You're going to hire a working supervisor, whether that's hire from without, promote from within. They got to be able to manage type 1 water supply. You're going to maintain 2 additional DPW workers. So Ed leaves, somebody gets hired in, you want to replace the void that Ed's left, and so that keeps the staff where it is. The only addition is you've got a seasonal part-timer. Number 2 is increase the size of the DPW. That certainly would go a long way to help with the current issues with being able to do all the work that's out there for them to do. There's got to be a greater focus on the water system to prevent Eagle from coming back and popping us on the head again and saying, look at all these things you haven't done. They're not deficiencies, but you got to fix it, right? And that would then be hiring a DPW supervisor, however we did that, and then maintaining 3 additional full-timers and a part-timer. Okay, so that's 1 additional person. Number 3 is maintain the status quo, but split out the village waterworks, so you've got a management company that's running the waterworks and doing most of those tasks that Ed currently does. Sorry, Joe, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. It manages most of those tasks, and you then retain a 3-man DPW staff that does all of the DPW work with the one additional seasonal hire. So in effect, the contractor becomes the operator in charge of the water treatment plant and some of the other waterworks activities. And then number 4 is, I probably shouldn't say it, but this is kind of the Hail Mary, is, there's some interim things that we could do. We can get an interim operator to run the plant. We can get an interim DPW supervisor while we look for, do our hiring actions and so on. I don't necessarily favor the personal opinion, I don't favor these, because it just kicks the can down the road. We still have to solve these problems. The thing we didn't want to try to do is solve several of them independently. The real way to do it is solve these in a comprehensive manner, because most of them are, what's the word I'm looking for? They're connected, right? Most of these are connected, and you really can't look at them as specific issues. I do want to note, we did not look at a privatization of the water system at all. I've read lots of bad stories about losing control of your water system, and then the company, really forces you to raise rates and raise taxes, and you have no real control over it because you sold the water company off. So we spent no time looking at that. Next chart is, these are very top level pros and cons. They're not all inclusive. I'm sure I missed a couple things here. And they're general assessments. There's nuances that exist when you start to look at these. Number 3 looks like it may be bad, but not necessarily. It's not necessarily any worse or any better than any of the other options, but I would ask you to take a look at those. And then to kind of close out here, the charts are provided to socialize some of the issues with you. Lyle, Steve, and I have been living this stuff for a while. I need you guys, the rest of you guys, to kind of absorb some of this stuff. Again, it's a complicated problem. It's not as simple as just replacing the supervisor. It gets much more involved than that, and what we would really recommend is a comprehensive solution. It's going to leave on the, I think we said again, 31st of March of next year, so that's less than 6 months. And there's processing time, I guess I'll put quotes around it. I mean, if regardless of who we would go to if we did management of the waterworks, there's proposals and contracts and discussions and negotiations, and that takes time. And then if we're hiring somebody outside or promoting from within, there's discussions and all of those actions. So we don't want to waste a whole bunch of time. So we're gonna put something on the table at the next meeting and see what you think. Couple additional data points that I neglected to add in the charts. You may just want to put on there. Ed spends approximately 20 hours a week, 20 hours a week, plus or minus, depending on water tasks directly related to the water work. For example, a good example of that is Ed's doing a lot of the sampling. And he's doing the reports, and he's, that's stuff that he's tied up with, and when he's doing that, he can't do other DPW functions. I would strongly recommend whatever we do, we start to transition to what comes after Ed, starting around the 1st of January, so that you, in fact, one of the things that F&B said, which I thought was, I could see it, is he said a lot of communities they're not even this far ahead. They think about transition after the guy has left, and now they're picking up pieces for 6 months after that and dealing with crises. We don't want to do that, right? We want a smooth transition, so we really, at least in our heads, whatever we do, we want to start thinking 1 January is when we start disconnecting Ed, letting him oversee, letting him train people, letting him get whoever is coming after him, and, trained up and ready to go. So that on the 31st, he's able to walk out the door. That's all.
Has Dave, the second man in command, has he expressed any interest in taking that position?
Yes, or yes?
Yeah. However, I would say we haven't really looked at that issue. So that is a complementary issue, obviously, that somebody needs to look at, right? So hopefully we will make a firm decision on which way we're going to go at the next meeting, so that some of that stuff can happen. So given that he has said, yeah, I'm interested, somebody can start to have a discussion with him about, okay, what are you thinking that you would do? And I know he's going to want a list of DPW tasks, right?
Sure.
We've already said we want him to come in and report at meetings and stuff like that. So this is a chance to make the changes that we said we want to make.
I have another question. On the F&V, have you given them the scope of operations of what you would require them to do?
That we worked out what it would be. It's really better to say, I guess, what the split between the DPW and the water department would be. We worked that out on Friday. They do have that. They are going to take a look at that, and they're going to come back and cost it out.
Okay.
Because that's the next logical question from you guys. If we're going to split it out, what's it going to cost?
Right, what's it gonna cost?
Yeah.
Right? We don't have a good idea now, and because again, we've focused on them, not because competition, and Jeff has warned me, right? Not because competition's bad, it's just the thought that if F&V is suitable,
Yeah.
and they're able to
They're
meet
here,
the,
they're already on.
they're here,
part of our
and
system.
it could be as easy as somebody managing that facility that goes over to the water. They cross-train their people, so you may get somebody now that is able to manage both.
Economies of scale or something.
Economy of scale, and, right, so the committee very much thinking that, beyond that, some of these other companies may be able to provide a good job, but it will likely cost more. Not that we shouldn't necessarily take a look at them.
No, but we need
It's
to
just,
do.
but I want council to say, go in that direction. Without a doubt, go in that direction, unequivocally.
So,
One other good thing with that is, then that frees up whoever is the supervisor. It gives them another whole half a week of actually able to do things and oversee things. So hopefully it'd be nice, if money-wise it's a wash. That'd be
That's
great.
what we're hoping, right? We don't know for sure, but that's what we're hoping.
so you're gonna have some recommendations next meeting, is that it, what
Yeah.
you're saying, Ross?
Yeah. I think the recommendations, I don't want to speak for these two guys, but I think the recommendations are going to be out of the 4 options, best options that we saw. It'll be out of there. I'll tell you right now, I don't want to punt, right? I want to do 1, 2, or 3 and make a firm commitment to those so that we can get on with it and do the things we need to
Certainly, we're
do.
gonna have to look at some, they usually use the term privatized, but some outside contracting possibly. I don't think there's any question we'll have to do that. I've thought it for a long time.
Yeah, well, I brought it up, and so Jeff doing what he's supposed to do, he says by our purchasing ordinance, we should compete. However, there is an opportunity in there to, if enough of the council votes to not compete and sole source to F&V if they got a good price, that is a way we could go, but it requires the majority of council to say, let's do that, right? I can't really put that on the table until I get a price.
Exactly.
And it could be as easy as making an amendment to our sewer agreement that we already have.
Yeah.
And just an amendment that they will run the water plant.
So I
With
take
all
it you've
these-
been talking to them a little bit about this, Steve, I hope?
Yes,
Yeah.
all of us have been involved in it, but
Yeah.
this is one of the options we thought about, and
We have left no doubt in their mind that it's gotta be fair pricing, right?
Yeah.
And again, we can still go out and compete. The nice thing that this meeting on Friday did is now if I need to compete, I've got really all the data I need. as to what should be split out and what would remain in the domain of the DPW.
Seems with the current job market and with the luck we've had at hiring new people, we have not been very successful at all.
No.
And certainly, we can't even get people to apply that have licenses.
Right.
Hardly even talk to us.
It's, yeah.
So definitely, I think you gotta look at that other, but.
Yeah, you
So,
gotta have that D3, S3, and in fact, as I understand it, we've got a candidate that sounds a potential rehire, who, as long as they don't have to go for any water licensing, they'd love to have it,
Well,
and probably
maybe.
be a great person to have. Right. But we gotta take that piece off the table. So again, this is all kinda interconnected, and we really need to solve it at a comprehensive level and not piecemeal these different issues that'll kill us.
So I take you're gonna want that put on the agenda for next meeting.
Yes, sir.
So, are you good now?
Yep, you can read the backup charts and the information in there.
Well, first of all, I gotta really thank the committee here for the hard work you've done. This is, you've spent an awful lot of time, consideration, probably dreaming about it at night.
I do.
And whereas I said sometimes your reports put me to sleep at night, this one's a little different, Ross.
Okay.
This one gives me nightmares.
Okay, yeah.
But we do have to face this, and we're fortunate to have you guys on this committee to prod us into action, because we need to do it. We need to do something, we need to start.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, I think we're gonna have to look at multiple directions in the beginning, and then hone in on what we can do.
Right.
Okay, moving on then. Any other discussion? I'm not trying to cut anybody off here.
Thanks, Ross.
You bet.
Okay, then, well, upcoming agenda items, I think you have something. I think they've given you something. Are there any other besides the, working on our supervisor retirement? Or
Sidewalks.
our planning for that retirement?
Sidewalks.
Sidewalks?
You'll have quotes, so
Yeah, okay.
I take it you want sewer on there, Steve?
Yeah, that's kind of a never
that's on
ending.
old business
Yeah,
all the time.
that one never ends. Anything else? Okay. Citizen comments.
I made my comment during the, already, I'm really concerned about Ed retiring also. Yeah.
We are too.
And we're glad to hear
I
from
love that you're planning for it.
Yes.
You gotta grab that information from his, brain before he leaves.
You got it. There's a lot
these
of.
jobs. The problem is the requirements of these jobs keep getting harder and harder. The government agencies want more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for a community our size.
Yeah.
Okay, citizens, are there any council comments? Community events, I guess that's what we've been nixing. Our community's not allowed too many events these days, but do we have anything? They have expanded football attendance, I know.
About Halloween or anything?
We do not, Halloween isn't our event, you know, usually the time is set by the chief, but that's about it, I mean, we're
The
not.
time is still 6 to 8, but that is up to the individual
Yeah.
households and
Yeah.
how they want to handle that.
Is that what they're doing?
Yes. But we do, and I know
You can't
that's
tell
what
people not
Romeo's
to-
doing also.
Strongly suggest, you know, recommend that people wear masks, social distance, you know, it's all you can do.
Okay, we have no closed session. Is there a motion for adjournment?
The time is 8:05. I move to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Picture gavel.
Okay.
Picture gavel, Mr. President. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.